Hi, welcome back to the channel. Michelle, and today I'm going to be doing my mid-year homeschool update for my 6th grader. So the schedule I showed you at the beginning of the year, the curriculum I showed you at the beginning of the year, we're all using everything. It's gone great the last 5 months. I don't make monthly update videos because there's not a lot of change in our schedule and the curriculum we use. I'm very intentional in the things I choose and how I schedule it. If there ever is an adjustment, I do put up a video to that, but everything's been going really well for her. And like I said, her schedule has not changed much since the beginning of the year when I put up my schedule video. So let's get into it. So first, math. She's continuing with dimensions. She's almost done with 5A. It's been going really well. The word problems, I will say, are challenging in dimensions. And there's sometimes I have to go to my husband and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Because he's very mathematically minded. It comes easy to him. And I do like that Dimensions provides multiple ways to get to an answer in a problem, so you're given different methods. And the word problems really do challenge you to understand and know what you're doing. You can't just squeak by. You have to have an idea of what you're doing. Something that has helped, and it was a suggestion from the Mama Librarian. If you ever noticed, whenever I'm troubleshooting a problem, I ask her advice. She's great. Check out her channel if you're not watching. But my daughter was having issues kind of figuring out the steps to go about the word problem, because Dimensions does a really roundabout way of kind of solving the problem. Sometimes it feels like you're doing it backwards. But again, it's testing you to see if you understand it. Not like it's easy when it's simply written, but higher level math, problem solving, reasoning isn't always simple. So I get the approach to it, but it can be difficult. So she suggested this method called cubes. So you circle the key numbers, underline the question, box the math action words, evaluate what strategy you're going to use, solve and check. And then we've been doing that with the word problems. And it's really helped kind of give her, again, she's a checklist kid. If she's got an outline of how to do something, bam, 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 she gets it done. So I've been having her circle the numbers in the word problem, underlining the question, especially in Dimensions, because there's often in the word problems ask you a question, but you have to do multiple steps before you can answer that question. Box the action words. Action words was really important because she'd get stuck on, okay, well, what, how am I going to solve this? And math action words. This has been really helpful. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. These are the words you'll often see. And sometimes you'll see them, it can be in both. And that's fine. Like each can be in multiplication and division. So she has to kind of figure out what is the question asking, how would I compute that? But it does kind of narrow it down for her and gives her some way to do it. And then what strategy will you use to solve? So this has been really helpful. And I keep this in her workbook, her test book, so she can refer to this and she feels less anxious when she's doing the problems, because it can be overwhelming looking at a large word problem with a bunch of numbers, different ways of doing things, and that kind of gives her a checklist. Okay, this is where I start. So that's been really helpful. So like I said, math has been going really well. We did bring in the cubes method to help with that. Next would be health. So once a week she reads out of her book, and we're focusing on puberty this year. We did as well last year. But that's just because she's 11, soon to be 12. It's getting to be that time. I want her to be informed as much as possible. So she did read this, and what she does is she'll read a couple pages or a chapter depending on what I mark, and then we'll discuss it. It's not a book I would give to your child to just read independently, because I do think, especially when talking about this topic, you need to have open discussion, bring up questions. Kids can definitely be shyer when it comes to this. They don't want to necessarily talk to mom and dad or their trusted adult about these things. So starting to breach that conversation, I think, is important. And it does go into more detailed subjects. I do like that it's inclusive, talking about male and female, gender identity, things like that, but started some really good conversations. She's currently working on be period positive, reframe your thinking, and reshape the future of menstruation. This is really good. I like that there's a big chunk of history of periods in here, like products being used, how different societies view menstruation. I think that's a really cool way to approach periods, because half the population has one. Okay, we don't have to make it taboo, and it's got some good information here. So she has started working through that. We are doing Michael Clay Thompson, Grammar Town. Again, we only do this once a week, and she does do Lightning Literature, which has grammar in it, yes. But we've always supplemented with Michael Clay Thompson, because it does go, I think, more in depth and provide a better understanding and the interconnection of language than most grammar programs we've kind of read through and looked over, especially for a kid who language arts has come more naturally to her. This is something that kind of pushes and challenges her. But I will say that there were parts in this that did coincide with her Lightning Literature grammar. So I think she was learning about positives. And again, Lightning Literature explained it. There was some practice around it, but it didn't really interconnect it to what she's already learned. This did. It showed her how, looking at a sentence, how these things are connected. So it's kind of bridging that gap. So that's why we do it once a week, and that's why we continue to do it, even though she does have grammar in her Lightning Literature. This, I think, is really good. Next would be vocabulary. So she's done 3 things for vocabulary. She's done editor-in-chief, and this is because when I had her map tested last year, she had some weaker areas in punctuation and mechanics, writing mechanics. So capitalization, things like that, commas, semicolons, those things. So I chose grades 4 through 5. She really liked this, and it's something I think I will get the next level of when she finishes the other things she's working on. But one of the things that she has trouble with is looking at her paper and seeing where the corrections need to be made. So whether it be a capital in the wrong place or forgot a comma. Simple things like that her writing has progressed to a point where she writes, well, we just need to focus on mechanics. That's what these things are. So she's finished this, and I'm not going to buy the next level until she finishes the other things she's working on. She's currently working on capitalization and punctuation. I got this workbook off Amazon, and she will rotate through these books. Obviously, she liked this one the most because she's finished with it. She did it on a daily basis. And this one she's almost done with, so this is her second favorite. But this, I think, has done a real good job improving her mechanics and figuring out where to put those commas and the semicolons and all those different markings. This has been helpful. The one she likes the least is Sadler vocab. But again, I think this is doing a really good job of challenging. For a kid that reads a ton and is exposed to a lot of literature, this has been good for her because it's getting into a level that's more challenging. And she only does a section of it a day. There's a little review section within it, so this is talking about idioms, and that was actually a fun conversation because she hadn't been familiar with some of them before, so I had to explain what they are. But there's different activities it's not like you're doing the same activity every single day. And she doesn't find that the words overwhelming in any way. There are words before that she just wasn't familiar with, which is great because she reads a ton. So getting her exposed vocabulary she's not familiar with. But I do like that it provides the vocabulary in a contextual setting. So you're seeing how that word is used, not just the definition. It does have the definitions on here as well. She's gotten into the habit of she copies these pages, her vocabulary pages, so she doesn't have to flip back and forth to answer the questions. But you can see it has choosing the right word, synonyms, complete the sentence, antonyms, and she'll do a page a day. Vocabulary and context. So again, I think it's great for her level and where she's at and challenging her. So that's everything she's been doing for vocab. And again, she'll do one of those workbooks every week and then switch to the next one. For spelling, we've been doing Phonetic Zoo, and I did make a video about how I've been adjusting this. And to sum it up is we don't use the audio files anymore. I do it with her. And again, I've talked about in that video about how as a child, she didn't go through all the levels of All About Reading. She did about half of the first level and then went into public school. And public school just taught, when it came to spelling, sight. So she was given a word list, memorized it. That's how spelling was taught. So she never got a lot of explanation or practice in blends and picking out specific sounds and how different letters can have multiple sounds. She never got a lot of practice in that with the public school system. So now that we're here, when she's breaking down a word phonetically, she has trouble finding certain blends and what those letters together would make. So that's say all that. I've adjusted a bit that we will go over, for example, the jingle. We'll go over the word list. Yeah, we'll go over the word list. And I will always start with a pre-test and give her a test of the words. And there's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 words. And to see which one she knows. And if she gets them right off the bat, I don't make her practice it. And then every day we practice the one she gets wrong. And I do have a little cheat sheet here where I write down the words she has struggled with and we go over that. So, for example, a list of 15, she'll have 5 she has to practice, usually 5 or 6. And we'll go over those every day with me emphasizing the spelling rule or the blend that she seems to be missing. And I think that just works better than the audio because she needs a little more concentrated, direct instruction with that area because she has kind of a gap from the public school education. So, and I do review, I keep this list ongoing, so every couple weeks we will go back to those words she struggled with in a previous lesson to make sure she still remembers it, and it's been going really well that way. So that's how we've been utilizing Phonetic Zoo. Next would be Lightning Literature. So she's halfway through this. So far she's read The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. So she was familiar with the story before. She previously had read it during the COVID years. We had an abridged copy of it. She read it, so she's familiar with it. She's like, I know the story, Mom. But I got to the point where she didn't remember certain details and couldn't answer the comprehension questions. So I'm like, you need to read it. You need to read the chapter. I know you know the gist of it, but it's asking specific things. And we do not do the writing literature. We do the reading, we do the comprehension questions, we do the book discussions at the end, we go over the elements of a story, so symbolism, internal, external conflict, man versus society, all that is included in there, but we do not do the writing. We use IEW for that. So that was like, I'll read it, but okay, I know it. View from Saturday, she enjoyed this book. Wednesday Wars, she thought this one was okay. And she loved this. She said it reminded her of a Catherine Applegate book, which is her favorite author. She really enjoyed Pax, which she had previously read some of it in the past, but again, not to the point where she could remember the details from the comprehension questions. So she reread it, but really enjoyed it this time. I think she tried reading it a couple of years ago and just wasn't an interest level then. Now that she has it, she really enjoys it. So those are what she's read so far in the last 5 months. She obviously reads books outside of this. She's an avid reader, constantly getting books from the library, constantly getting things from Hoopla and Libby. She's constantly reading. I don't assign her reading outside of homeschool because she's constantly reading everything else. So the next one she's going to be reading is A Long Walk to Water. We will start that after Christmas break. So Lightning Literature has gone well so far this year. Again, I would say up until the middle. So when we got to week 18, the second poetry unit, she does this mostly independently. There are times when she has to pull me aside on a grammar and we have to talk about the concepts because it wasn't explained well or she didn't understand something, or if I notice, because I check this on a daily basis, if I notice that the activity that went with it, the worksheet, she got a lot wrong or missed a concept, I will review that with her right away. I don't wait till like the end of the week or just assume she can do it because she's 11 in 6th grade. You should never make those assumptions. Your job as a teacher to always be checking so you can catch those missed concepts really quickly. But for the most part, she does do it independently, and she's done Lightning Literature since we brought her home for 3rd grade for homeschool, and it's been working really well for her. I do like that it builds upon its concepts every year. But I will say when we hit the second poetry unit, she could not do it independently. I think it would have been very hard to do independently. And again, she's an avid reader. Language arts is her area. But it's not just that the poetry was hard. It doesn't really give you... it does have different questions instead of comprehension questions. It does have looking at the certain stanzas and what certain words mean. But the poems we're talking about, I think the best way to approach it would be going over it, because I do think poetry is better understood when you say it out loud. So we would go over the poetry, I would read it together, and then we would talk about what the poem was about, which sometimes in comprehension questions it gets around that, but oftentimes it doesn't. And I think having an understanding of what the poet was going for, or what imagery was used, is important. So I do think this poetry unit, the first poetry unit she did early in the year, didn't need me, was a lot more simple. This was a lot more complicated, and I think it would be good to definitely go through with your child and go through that poetry to understand the concepts, because it's really hard to pull out different concepts in poems, more complicated poems. We're not doing simple rhyming here. We're doing Emily Dickinson Mark Twain is in here. To understand the words being used and why the poet did it, not just looking at rhyming schemes, but getting more into like stress on words. Why are specific letters stressed in a word? That is something that I think needs to be done with your child. I think it's really hard for them to understand unless you're helping them in that. So that was the first time we really encountered that in Lightning Literature, where she needed full-on help from me, that this needed a lot more direct instruction. It could just be my child, I don't know. I will say that the poetry, specifically the workload, I felt like increased pretty drastically. A lot of people have asked how she does with the reading, because there's, multiple chapters assigned. She's never struggled with the amount of reading assigned in Lightning Literature. She's an avid reader. It goes really well. Same reason I don't use it for my 8-year-old who has struggled with reading in the past. She can't handle that amount of reading. She doesn't have that kind of stamina. My oldest does. So the reading has never been an issue with her. But I will say, when you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 4 pages of poems that they read, okay? And then they have their questions that go with those poems. And then you have your grammar lesson, which is 1, 2, 3 pages, and then you have some activities to go with that. So it felt like it took a jump in this week of poetry. So you can see, that's a lot of text, which I think a child would probably need some help getting through that. I think it would be a bit hard to really understand some more complex concepts without some direct instruction. So I'm curious to see if it was just this isolated poetry unit that just needed a little bit more. Because like I said, these past books, she hasn't really needed me much, and she's starting this one next week. So we'll see if it's just a random fluke in the middle, that it's a little bit harder, a little bit more direct instruction, or if that's building upon something, if it's going to be kind of escalating more, as we go on. And 7th grade, looking forward to that. Is it going to be a challenge? Because if it is, I'm actually really excited to challenge this kid in language arts. But I need to know if I will have more direct instruction than has previously been in Lightning Literature. So we'll see where that goes. But I was a little surprised in the middle of the year that the poetry unit was a bit more intense than we've encountered previously, but I will update to see how that goes throughout the year. Next would be IEW. She's been doing Structure and Style, Year 2, Level B. So I did skip her because this is meant for 7th grade, but I'd like to preface that by saying that she's done previous years, fully done, not, chunks of it. She has fully completed previous years of IEW, and there was a lot of repetition to, the levels. And I had her trial out the first 6 weeks of this level before purchasing it. She did really well with it, and I made the right choice. So I did skip her ahead to 7th grade IW, but that's because she's had such a solid foundation in previous years where she's fully finished previous years. That's why I skipped her ahead. It's gone really well with her. So she recently wrote a 4-page paper, so front, back, and she had 2 weeks to do it, which if you know IW, usually you get 1 week to do a paper, but because this was a multi-step approach, she did really well with it. She actually finished it early and was really proud of herself. So I think we've reached a point where her writing is really good. Again, we're just working on mechanics and things, cleaning up the writing of it. The actual, what she's putting on paper is good, but the mechanics of it, we have to clean it up a bit. We can focus that on that. Now, one thing I really did like in here, that one of the lessons kind of had them schedule out how they were going to write this longer paper. I think it was like 12 paragraphs. How they were going to write a 12-paragraph paper, so kind of outlining, okay, this day I'm going to work on this day I'm going to work on this. And I think that's an essential skill to learn, especially as we get into high school and college, that being able to map out and outline how you're going to do your work, that's time management skills, especially in writing. So you're not trying to write a 12-paragraph paper, a week prior or a day. If you break it into smaller chunks, it's easier. So I did appreciate that it included in that, but she's doing really well with that. Next would be typing. She's continued to typing. She does not do it every Friday anymore, and that's because she types more on the computer now. She does different coding things, and she writes her own stories, and she types those on the computer, so I don't feel like she necessarily needs to do the lessons every Friday. She's doing enough typing in her free time that it's kind of taken over that. So that is her schedule. And again, I'll go over group subjects in a separate video. We do history Monday through Thursday. That's core knowledge United States history. We do art on Tuesday. Wednesday, we've done either social justice. If it's a certain season, like November, we do Native American Heritage Month, or during December, we do a holiday study. We'll do that during that chunk of time. Thursday and Fridays, core knowledge science, 5th grade. We do philosophy on Fridays as well. As far as extracurricular activities, she does horseback riding. She's done that for quite a few years now. It's something she really enjoys and something she's getting really good at. I'm really proud of the progress and the confidence that's instilled on her, but she's doing really well for her 6th grade year. We're halfway done already, which seems crazy. But like I said, I think having that prep time and all those things I've done to really make this a successful year. It's not some random thing that happens. I think when I get on here and say we do the same schedule, we do the same curriculum, we make adjustments as needed, that's really how I can sit here and tell you that things have gone so well, because I've done so much of that work to get us to that point that everything flows smoothly, because it's the consistency, it's the getting up daily and doing your homeschooling and following your schedule and getting through your curriculum that makes this type of progress. So if you have any specific questions, let me know. If not, thank you for watching.